Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya, Harvard-trained Neiman Fellow in Journalism, also known as Adefemi Akinsanya.
I knew that was coming. I knew it was coming. You know, yesterday I expect, and I hope you realize, Dr. Ruben, that my Yoruba pronunciations have actually become fantastic. Should I tell you? Should I give you an introduction? My name is Adefemi Akinsanya. Did you look at that?
Now you got it. No longer Adefemi Akinsanya.
Beforehand, I was so used to pronouncing it so that it's spelled correctly. You know, when you grow up in different countries, there are always people who aren't familiar with your name, but now it's Akinsanya. So
very good.
All righty. Well, good morning to you viewers. We are indeed looking at papers from around the world, and we'll start here in Nigeria with the front cover of this state newspaper. Now, I know that we've been talking a lot about the NEC's silence on this new wave, but what I would like us to focus on are the comments from Senate President Godswill Akpabio. He says that no form of blackmail will stop the Senate from approving the presidential plane. Now, he made those comments directed at the fifth columnist, but I do feel as though it is a comment that would ring true for everybody. I think everyone would feel some form of something. Perhaps you'd be offended by the comment, because I don't think this is a blackmail issue. I think if we are continuing to discuss the economic situation in this country, you'd imagine that the president should lead by examples. If you're asking and expecting people to make certain cutbacks and sacrifices financially to get them through the month, you'd imagine that, again, the #1 citizen in the country should do the same too, especially since there are viable alternatives. We'll go on to take a few more Nigerian papers before we come to you all for comment. If we move on to the front page of The Guardian, they've got a caricature there on their front page, and they're discussing Igbo apprenticeship schemes. These things have been in existence for an age. But what they are discussing on the front page of The Guardian paper this morning is about how those apprenticeship schemes are undermining educational attainment and educational enrollment. If you take a look at the articles itself, it continues on pages 4 and 5 of The Guardian. There are very interesting personal profiles to people who have themselves been a member of these apprenticeship schemes, some positive, some negative experiences. And the overall consensus with their experiences that there's been an overcompensation on looking at these apprenticeship schemes, and unfortunately in situations where they go bad, they don't have an education then to fall back on. So I guess it does shine an extra light on the viability of these apprenticeship schemes and whether or not they can be
apprenticeship scheme into the school curriculum.
Well, there
I think that's the best way to go.
There is that too. To join the two together, it makes the most sense.
Put the apprenticeship scheme into the school curriculum in such a way that when students come out of school, you pay them a couple of 1 or 2 shops.
Right.
They go there, they work 1 or 2 hours, they come back, they Ghana experience. So it's part of the school curriculum.
It makes a lot of sense. And then finally, for our last Nigerian paper, we'll look at the New Telegraph. They're looking at supermarkets and how, again, this economic situation of forcing some supermarkets to consider pulling out of Nigeria. They mentioned, and there were quite a few different supermarket associations that are mentioned in this article, but the supermarkets themselves that they mentioned that are considering pulling out of Nigeria or stopping operations altogether, Kingsway Supermarket, Leventis Foods, and Domino's Supermarket. So again, something that I'd imagine that many businesses, entrepreneurs, people in general are considering restrictions and cutbacks, and that kind of leads us back to our first story, looking at the presidential plane and the monies there. What do you guys think?
Lack of priority to a large extent. And you know, the bullish nature in which Mr. Akpabio is saying it and the heart of the insensitivity of his words just scares me to my marrow. It scares me to my core. He went ahead also to make the very insensitive faux pas by saying, don't you see what is happening in Malawi? See how the president died because of a defective plane. See Iran, that's even a helicopter for that matter.
If anything, that would be blackmail, right?
That's a cheap
that be emotional,
blackmail. That's a cheap blackmail. That's a Trumpian blackmail, if I can use that word. And it's sad that these people have no empathy. They have no understanding of what is going on. Look at supermarket chains leaving. ShopRite left. Game left. All the supermarket chains keep leaving. You know why? Because there's a problem with purchasing power parity. There's a problem with disposable income. People cannot use this money to buy things in the supermarket. Honest, you take 50,000 or 100,000 to the supermarket, you can hardly get something out of it. These are the things they should work on and see how they can revitalize our local sector.
Absolutely.
All right. So I would like to talk about the Igbo apprenticeship, and just in alignment with what Rufai said, because that's the first thing that came to my mind. There's a movie, and Art Mirrors Life, Afame Funam, on I think it's on Netflix. Yeah. And they talk about how critical it is to the fabric and the culture of the Igbo people. But the beauty about that is that we often talk about the fact that we have an unemployment challenge in Nigeria. We have a challenge where even those who are going to school are said not to even have requisite skills to get the jobs that they ought to be getting. So why not raise entrepreneurs? Rather than make it sound like apprenticeship, give it the name of Igbo apprenticeship, it is entrepreneurial studies so that students who come out of school having attained basic education can decide whether they want to go the route of formal education and pursue higher education or go into business and become entrepreneurs. We need to raise more people who have the mindset of running businesses, being employers of labor themselves, and gaining skills both sides. So rather than saying that it's reducing enrollment, why don't we see how we can go there and work together with them to see the importance of both basic education and also entrepreneurial skills for children? I think it's fantastic, and not just in the Southeast. It should be rolled out across Nigeria. Let's raise people who can think of ideas. Mark Zuckerberg didn't finish school. He did not. A lot of people, in tech didn't. A number of them just had the idea and were able to move into business.
Okay, I watched the movie Afeme Funa on Netflix, which is about entrepreneurship, which is something that our brothers from the Southeast have developed into an industry. However, we should also remember the point that, in fact, that Igbo model of entrepreneurship, books have been written on it. Even in Harvard, there was a special study. I think that, Tony Elumelu, who is a champion of entrepreneurship with his concept of Afro-capitalism, was at a point invited to Harvard to speak on the concept. But I think what is important is for Nigeria to take a second look at the curriculum. I was at the Said Business School. Look, what they teach, they don't teach you theory like that. They teach you how.
Case studies.
I was at the University of Maryland, College Park. What they teach you is how, very practical. Our education system in Nigeria is still so focused on theory. What do they call it? Rote learning. You just pass exams. So I think that the bigger question about this talk about entrepreneurship is to review our curriculum at various levels to teach our students how, not just theory and passing exams. That's the bigger question. Otherwise, entrepreneurship is very important and should become part of the curriculum. Okay. Now, as to Akpabio, talking about there's nothing anybody will say, nobody can intimidate us, we will buy new jets for the president of Nigeria. Now, I made the point that, look, can they sell part of the fleet to at least raise money? Because in my view, the safety of those who lead us is as important as the safety of the ordinary people. But if you look at the circumstances, you cannot just come and tell us you will take billions of money to go and buy aircraft for comfort, for privilege.
Exactly.
Now they have said they are going to sell 3 of the aircraft. So fine, if they are going to do that, there will be additional questions. 1, who is the contractor? Where is that aircraft coming from? Where is the nature of the privilege? We need to ask all of those questions.
Absolutely.
And we need to audit the report, both by the Air Force and the House Committee on Aviation, saying that, some of those aircraft have become unserviceable.
I agree.
And then who will benefit from the aircraft? Because if you go and use our money to go and service aircraft, and you are giving the aircraft to the children of the president whom we did not vote for, or you give it to some funny characters, then Nigerians will have the right to go to the Kenya route.
Well, mentioning Kenya, we can segue onto our African papers. We do have 2 African papers to look at. One, if we do look at the Kenyan Daily Nation, they've got 8 images of people who lost their lives in the recently concluded, if you can even say that, anti-tax increase protests. And one of those people who lost their lives, who were pictured on the front page of the Daily Nation, I know this is the Daily Graphic from Ghana. Thank you, we've got the Daily Nation up there. Just in the top right-hand corner, that young boy is only 17 years old. So it does bring home how devastating each and every life that was lost is. But when you see someone so young, a life wasted so needlessly, it is heartbreaking to look at that. And as we've been making the parallel between what has happened in Kenya, what has happened in Nigeria a few years ago, it is heartbreaking.
Kenya is not in denial of the people that were killed. Nigeria was still in denial till tomorrow that people were killed. Right. But it is very sad. And I think Ruto was seen somewhere, you know, having a talk with the police chief and all of that, you know, castigating back and forth. It's not about castigating. Ruto himself caused this problem. Right. And he must take responsibility for it. If he had negotiated better, if he had done it better, all of this would not happen. But that's a very sad one. And the lots of people lost by the Kenyan Defense Forces and the police in Kenya, investigations must be done and it must be brought to book.
First. I know that we also have a front cover from Ghana that looks at the struggles that Ghana are having when it comes to starting up their own national airline carrier. And I think that many African countries can relate to the fact that in theory, having a national carrier is a source of pride, a source of creating a viable transport alternative for the citizens of a country. But as you be able to read in the Daily Graphics article, it is quite difficult to raise the funds and also make this a profitable enterprise. Moving then on from our African papers to our more international ones, we've got the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and they talk about the first instance of this debate between President Biden and former President Donald Trump, and how the general consensus that the former President Donald Trump, if you can, I don't know what metrics people are saying has won that debate, but certainly performed better. And it will be interesting to look at the topics. But here they seem to clash over immigration, which has always been a contentious issue, even when former President Trump was in power, but also other issues, controversial issues like abortion. From then on, I will quickly mention two UK papers. We've got the Daily Telegraph, where Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is comparing Nigel Farage to Vladimir Putin. And he also warns of buyer's remorse should people turn away from the Conservative Party and vote for Labour, which could be the instance that we see come elections next week. And then finally, the Daily Express, they have an expose, if you can even call it that. The front page of the Daily Express talks about how the BBC paid £30,000 in TV licence fee payers' money to hire audience members for the Sunak-Starmer television debates. Those monies include £150 disturbance money going to each of these audience members, and also £30 towards their travel expenses. It looks as though we've come to the end.
Just to add to what we have said before now, that President Trump lied throughout that debate.
Yes. Right.
The most unfortunate thing is that President Biden could not respond to him. He said Biden has been paid by the Russians. That's not true. He said 18 million immigrants entered America using, you know, the border, the Mexico issue. He lied. 18 million people did not enter America. He said Biden destroyed America, but Biden has not destroyed America. But, I mean, all of this, I don't know. He says that budget deficit under Biden is the largest in American history. Right. That's not true. In fact,
his own budget deficit
was worse. You know, so all those lies, President Biden not being able to respond robustly made it look like
he was telling the truth, which he obviously wasn't. Well, that's all from me. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you very much, Adefemi Akinsanya.
Yes.
Thank you very much.